Welcome back to another video. This one's going to be quite information dense, but it should save you a lot of hours. I really tried to include that kind of information I would want to hear myself 200 hours back. So I'll keep it moving, cut the fluff, and focus on actionable tips you can take straight into your raids. This is the exact approach that helped me rebuild my stash and run high tier gear consistently, even after resetting with the expedition. So let's not waste any time and dive right into it. Before we talk about how to approach raids, we need to be clear on what the actual targets are. So let's start with the highest priority item in this entire system, springs. Springs cannot be crafted from other resources, but they are required for advanced mechanical components and extended magazines. They're also one of the trickiest items to sustain long term, so anytime you see springs, make sure to pick them up. You'll find them as loose loot or inside containers, but there's another important source as well. Some high tier items actually recycle or salvage into springs. On screen now you can see these items split into two groups, and that split is important. Why? Because the top group, Magnetron, Accordion, and Rusted Tools, needs to be extracted and recycled in your stash. If you salvage these in raids, springs are lost in the process. The bottom group though, Cooling Coil and Spring Cushion, it's kind of different. These give the same amount of springs whether you salvage them in raid or recycle them later. So why exactly would you want to salvage in raid? It's pretty simple actually. To save inventory slots and merge different items that give springs with the ones you already picked up into an existing stack. That's the first big takeaway. Springs are a hard bottleneck, and understanding how to extract a maximum amount will save you some pain later on. Next bottleneck item are going to be simple gun parts. Just like springs, these cannot be crafted. They are more predictable though. You'll find them in containers from arc enemies and by recycling weapons. Every 4 simple gun parts also refine into light, medium, or heavy gun parts. To do that, you need your refiner at level 2, and you need a separate blueprint for each type. This part is important. If you're missing the blueprint for a specific gun part, you're locked out of consistently running weapons from that category. Quick example here, if you want to run a Venator, you need both a Venator blueprint and the medium gun parts blueprint, and the same logic will apply to every other gun. Now let's talk about the backbone of this entire strategy. Metal parts. Metal parts aren't hard to find, they are everywhere. Car hoods, metal crates, lockers, drawers, and a lot of other items recycle into them. I'm showing a full list on screen right now from the Arc Creators Wiki. If you want to dig deeper, links in the description. The hard part is the quantity required to sustain the system. Here's the key thing to understand. Arc Creators inventory is slot based and metal parts stack to 50. And right now there's no other crafting material in the game that gives even close to that value per slot. Even something like Arc Performance Steel, which is among the best recyclables, tops out at 36 metal parts on a full stack. So a direct stack of 50 metal parts will always be higher value for this strategy than any other metal-based item. Now we move into supplementary materials. Why supplementary? Because over time you need a lot less of these compared to metal parts. First, rubber parts. These are used alongside metal parts to craft mechanical components at a 7:3 ratio. Second, chemicals. Weapons need ammo to run, and ammo is crafted from metal parts and chemicals. Since you're resupplying ammo basically every raid, chemicals end up being the second supplementary material you always need to pay attention to. For weapon mods specifically, we're looking at wires and duct tape on top of springs that we already covered. I usually keep 2 to 3 stacks of each in my stash. That gives me the flexibility to craft mods whenever I need. If I'm above that threshold, I skip them in raid. If I'm below it, I start targeting them again. Simple rule to remember here, wires are for muzzle mods, duct tape for grips and stocks, and springs for magazines. Once you understand that, you can target exactly what you need instead of grabbing everything and clogging up your inventory. And you should start to see why springs get drained from multiple directions, especially because extended mags are just really good in this game. Moving on, we have Arc Alloy and Exodus modules. Both of these again cannot be refined, they have to be pulled from the raid. These two are used for crafting pink weapons, not upgrading them. Arc Alloy isn't really going to be the problem here. You get it everywhere from dead arc enemies. You mainly use it to make motion cores, which then go into magnetic accelerators. So let's focus on Exodus modules here. You get them by recycling things like the Geiger counter, ion sputer, and spectrum analyzer, or by finding them directly in raid. I personally like running Stellar for these because it's a solid way to build up a supply, just so you get a feel for how much you need. Tempest and Bobcat need 2 each, Volcano and Hullcracker 1, and Bettina, being the exception here, doesn't need any at all. These top slots I left open here are meant for weapons you get in raid, either from players or from containers. These are the best case scenario because you're pretty much skipping steps by getting the end product directly. Picking these up, even if you go overweight, they're worth taking out. Later in the video, I'll also show you the skill tree nodes to solve the overweight problem alongside with other useful skills for our target runs. I will set one boundary though. Unmodded level 1 and level 2 grey weapons just aren't worth picking up. The value per slot is so low that I would pretty much just salvage those instantly. And last but definitely not least, seeds. I personally think these are so slept on. I see players leave them behind in containers and on downed raiders all the time, but seeds trade into a lot of resources we just talked about, so next I'll show you exactly how to prioritize trading at Celeste. From the bottom up, I always empty springs and simple gun parts first, then I grab all 3 types of refined gun parts. Wires and duct tape, I honestly skip most of the time. They're so easy to get in raid that it's usually not worth spending seeds on them. I only buy those if I'm completely out and I want to make a specific mod for the next raid, so those are as needed. I will always grab Exodus modules though. I like running pink weapons, and this is what gives me a bit more consistency. If I by chance empty all of these out and I still have seeds left, I have a few different options. Either save them for the next day so I can instantly buy my priorities when I log on, trade them for other useful items that I want, or do 1-for-1 trades into metal parts, which is an infinite non-capped barter. As long as you have seeds coming in, this gives you a steady head start in resources every day. There is another way to generate resources without going into a raid, as long as you have the money. Let's go to Tianduan's shop, and for our purposes this works just like Celeste, except instead of trading seeds for resources, we are now trading cash for resources. Quick example just to show the idea. Let's say I buy a Hullcracker, a Renegade, and 3 anvils for 96k. Those weapons then recycle into both types of mechanical components and different types of gun parts. And you also indirectly bought springs because you didn't have to spend any on crafting these refined resources. You can do this with any weapon until you hit the daily cap. So if you're missing a specific component and you have the cash, this is one way to force generate it. And that's not the only trick. You can also trade 1000 cash for 1 seed infinitely. Why would you ever want to do that, you might ask? Let's say you're about to log off, you check Celeste and you see Exodus modules are still up, but you're sitting at 49 seeds, just 6 short of buying them. You're obviously not going to run another raid just for that. So you go to the clinic, where Lance is waiting patiently on his chair, buy 2 defibs, recycle those into moss, recycle moss into seeds, and now you can grab the modules. Defibs have infinite stock, so you can do this whenever you need to, trade a small amount of money, which gives you just enough reach to grab something of value. Both of these methods are obviously expensive when done in higher amounts. They're not something you are using all the time, especially early or mid game, but if you're sitting on money and you need a specific bottleneck item right now, these let you convert cash into resources. And more than anything, it's important that you know that these options exist. Next, let's check out what augment we are bringing here. I'm running the Survivor looting augment, and for what we're doing today, this is honestly one of the best augments in the game. I'd go as far as saying if you're not running a heavy shield, this is probably the best option. So why not the cautious MK3? That one gives you 26 slots, but you are losing a safe pocket, which just isn't worth it in my opinion for gaining those 3 extra slots over the Survivor. Safe slots are pretty much guaranteed value, and on top of that, Survivor lets you run a medium shield, which directly improves your chances in raid. And then there's the passive. The health regen while downed is huge in duos and squads, but even in solos it can save you if you go down close to an exit. If you don't have the survivor blueprint, this still works with other augments, just don't go too low on slots because that directly reduces how effective this method is. Use the best option you have available. I was even running this with a looting MK2 before I unlocked the others. What about guns to take? The answer is the best you can afford. That's the whole point of this system. This strategy will provide, which means you can keep upgrading and keep bringing better gear into your raids. So yeah, if you're still stuck running free kits or low level grey guns after applying this, then I failed completely with this video and my method is just hot garbage. So when you look at this looting template, you obviously won't fill every slot with the exact same items every raid, and that's completely normal. The empty slots get filled with whatever you find that recycles into either springs or metal parts. Now the obvious question is, what if I find something really good that doesn't fit this template? That's why we have override rules. If you find a blueprint you don't own yet, it instantly overrides a safe pocket. For rare items, I ask myself one question: can I easily get this again in another raid? If the answer is no, then I take it, because that means it would block progress somewhere else. That includes things like expedition turn-ins, quest items, or level 3 bench upgrades. If it's tied to progression, you take it and you turn it in. But regular crafting materials, those you avoid. They will clog up your inventory instantly and this entire method stops working. Even if you're tempted, you need to resist. Outside of exceptions, this is how I use my safe pockets. The first slot is always springs. The other two are for gun parts or seeds. For gun parts, I'm just doing basic math. A simple gun part has a value of 1, a refined gun part has a value of 4. So I safe pocket based on stack value. There are exceptions though. For example, if I'm not running heavy weapons, then simple gun parts are more valuable to me because I can convert them into anything. Also remember, a refined gun part recycles into 2 simple and salvages into 1 simple. So even if you're not going to use it directly, you can still transform it. For seeds, the same logic applies. If Celeste would give me more value than what I'm currently holding, then the seeds go into the safe pocket. From the start to the end of the raid, you're constantly compounding simple gun parts from small arc. Take something like a wasp for example, you take it down, take 2 seconds to loot, grab the gun parts and move on. Do that a few times and they add up very fast. If you get a chance to kill a surveyor or a shredder, those are great too. Both very fast to kill solo and give really good value in metal items. Bigger arc, on the other hand, is a whole topic on its own. But here are some basic guidelines. A Rocketeer drops refined heavy gun parts, but it's annoying to deal with. Most of the time, I skip it, the value just isn't there for the effort. Bastion and Bombardier though, are a whole different story. These are packed with top tier metal items. If you can handle them, they are incredible value. Deadline is especially good here, you get a lot of return very fast, but if you don't have a deadline, take out one of its legs, run around the back and target the yellow weak spot. And here's a bonus tip. Use the matriarch event for the chaos, not for the matriarch itself, but for everything that's happening around it. Everyone's killing a bunch of arc and most raiders are focused on the boss. That means the area turns into an arc graveyard. You can fill your pockets until you can barely walk while everyone else is distracted. If you get out with that, it's a massive metal power spike. Try it yourself and you'll see. On the topic of recycling and salvaging, you've probably picked this up already. You get more resources when you recycle in your stash and you lose some when you salvage in raid. That's why we only use salvaging to top off incomplete stacks. It's there to remove dead, low value slots and increase value per inventory slot. If you try to build stacks from scratch by salvaging, it's just not worth it. You bleed way too much resources and waste a lot of time. Knowing what recycles into what comes with experience. At first you'll fumble with it, later on you'll just know by looking at the item. Most of the time it's common sense. If it looks like metal, it probably recycles into metal parts. Same with containers. Eventually you'll start to learn which containers roll which items. And yeah, I can't help myself not to say this, the game really needs a drop in salvage hotkey. Right now it's right click, salvage, confirm over and over and over again. If you're doing this a lot, it gets really tedious. I'm fine with the confirmation if you want to use the menu, because it shows what you get. We just need hotkeys on top of that to do it faster. Okay, so here are the quick skill tree picks that make this whole method way smoother. For the green tree on the left, first we have proficient prior. Faster breaches just means more loot faster, then a little extra. This one adds materials when you breach, and a lot of the time that's just free metal parts stacking up in your inventory. You're taking that perk on the way to what it's in my opinion a must-have, loaded arms. This reduces the weight of the equipped weapons, and it lets you carry way more before you hit that overweight status. For the red tree on the right, I like Looter's Instincts for faster looting, but the most important one here is Broad Shoulders. Flat weight increase, this directly increases how much value you can extract. Then Looter's Luck, it procs a lot. The double item reveals speed up things even more. And finally, Security Breach. It got nerfed, I still think it gives okay value. Now that respects are available, just try it and decide for yourself. And now we arrived at the last part of the system. What to do once the loot starts piling up in your stash. As your basic resources grow, the goal shifts to one thing, increasing value per slot in stash. You always work bottom up, metal parts into mechanical components, mechanical into advanced mechanical components. You keep compressing value into higher tiers. At the same time, look at your weapons. If you have a bunch of level 1 guns that you won't be able to max anytime soon, clean them out. Recycle them for components and free up space. Then focus on the guns you actually keep. Go to the gunsmith, invest your components and gun parts. You're aiming for level 4 maxed weapons because that's where both performance and value peak. If you run out of weapons to upgrade, craft new ones, mod them, keep the cycle going. Running high tier weapons increases your survival in raid. That gives you more extracts, more resources. That's the snowball. Keep your weapons repaired, ready to go, and in rotation. And this system will do wonders for you. That's it for this one. Do let me know down in the comments if this gave you something you can actually take into your raids. If you learned something new, any support on the video really helps. It lets the channel reach more players who are looking for clear and practical information. As always, I'll see you in the next one.